There is a plant that doubles itself in less than a day and a half. Not under ideal conditions, not in a laboratory, but in any container of still water you can find. A tiny handful like green flour becomes two handfuls after just 29 to 30 hours. Four handfuls in less than 3 days. By day 7, you have enough to cover an entire bathtub. By day 30, you can harvest tons of biomass. This is not exaggeration. This is pure mathematics. The rate of exponential growth is so extreme that scientists call it the smallest flowering plant, but the fastest growing on Earth. It has no roots, no stems, no leaves in the conventional sense. Yet per unit area, it produces biomass faster than almost any food crop humans have ever studied. But speed is not what makes this plant dangerous. This plant contains up to 45% protein by dry weight, even reaching 48 to 50% in some optimized strains. Eggs contain only 12%, beef around 26%, chicken about 31%. This tiny floating green mass surpasses them all. And more importantly, this is not a deficient protein. Unlike legumes that must be combined with grains to complete amino acids. This is a complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids in ratios closely matching egg protein. According to studies from Ben-Gurion University and human clinical trials, the proportions of leucine, lysine, threonine, and other amino acids align almost perfectly with human physiological requirements. Protein digestibility reaches about 89 to 93% comparable to eggs, and it even contains natural vitamin B12, rare in plants. With just 1 square meter of water surface after 30 days of growth, you have enough protein to feed one person for an entire month, equivalent to hundreds of grams of protein over 1 month. No soil, no chemical fertilizers, no machinery, no artificial irrigation, no pesticides, only still water and sunlight. A protein-producing system that operates continuously repeatedly and requires almost no labor beyond harvesting. This plant's scientific name is Wolffia, specifically Wolffia globosa, also known as watermeal or mankai in commercial varieties. It is the smallest flowering plant, the tiny green dust-like layer you see floating on ponds, lakes, and canals. Something people are taught to be disgusted by, to consider waste something that must be skimmed away. But it is not. It is in fact the most efficient protein production system ever discovered on Earth. Just 1 acre, about 0.4 hectares of water surface growing, Wolffia can produce 5 to 10 times more protein than 1 acre of soybeans and many times more than corn. Based on studies showing dry biomass yields of 10 to 30 tons per hectare per year, even higher in optimized systems with 45% protein. Kong needs seasons, no need for replanting. It does not wait months for harvest. It produces food by the day, even by the hour. No traditional agricultural system operates this way. And it does one more thing. Something that should have made it the most valuable crop on the planet: it cleans water while it grows. Wolffia absorbs nitrogen, phosphorus, and heavy metals at astonishing rates, up to 70 to 99% removal in wastewater. It turns polluted agricultural runoff, something that can poison rivers, into edible protein. It filters water and feeds you at the same time. A plant that grows almost anywhere, requiring very little, producing complete protein faster than any crop in human history, at the same time using the very nutrients that other systems consider a problem. That is not Wolffia. That is a food production model we have never learned to see correctly. This plant should have been everywhere. In small backyard gardens, on every rooftop, every community garden, every refugee camp. In places lacking land, lacking fertilizer, lacking supply chains. Every food insecure region. Yet in many parts of the developed world, large-scale cultivation of Wolffia is restricted or discouraged. They call it a nuisance, something troublesome. They call it a fast-spreading species, something that must be skimmed away to clean water surfaces to avoid disrupting local ecosystems. They have spent billions of dollars to control and remove it from natural ponds and lakes, ensuring that you never learn its true value. But the people of Southeast Asia never forgot. In Thailand, it is called Kai Nam, water eggs. In Myanmar, it is known as yakayen. In Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, it has been harvested from rice fields since times older than recorded history. This is not famine food, not in times of crisis, but as a familiar food, A tiny green vegetable, nutrient, dense eaten like ordinary greens in soup salads, omelets used in daily meals. It is the food of communities that have lived stably and sustainably for many generations within farming systems that understand how to work with water light and biology rather than against them. When industrial agriculture redefined what counts as serious food, this small plant was not defeated. It was simply ignored. The earliest records of this plant under the name shui ping or duckweed appear in the Shenong Bencao Jing of China around the 1st to 2nd century after Christ, one of the oldest herbal medicine texts in the world. Farmers at that time observed that ponds containing Wolffia produced healthier fish. They observed that rice fields with Wolffia required less fertilizer. They observed that livestock fed Wolffia grew faster and stronger. They did not understand the nitrogen cycle. They did not understand protein synthesis. But they understood real-world outcomes. This practice spread throughout Southeast Asia. Integrated systems emerged rice fields with Wolffia growing on the water surface. Fish living below consumed the excess. Pigs and chickens ate Wolffia harvested from the field edges. Animal waste fertilized the water. Wolffia cleaned it again. No external inputs, a complete nutrient cycle, a self-sustaining food system for centuries. People harvested this tiny biomass layer directly from shallow ponds and rice fields. It was cooked in soups mixed with rice, eaten as a familiar part of daily meals. As a normal, available, and reliable source of nutrition, these communities did not know about complete protein or essential amino acids. They had no concept of biomass or yield per area. But they recognized one very simple thing: this green layer appeared quickly regenerated, continuously, and kept people full for longer. They understood the result even if they could not name the mechanism. When European explorers arrived in Southeast Asia, they recorded these practices with amazement. Colonial-era accounts describe villages where meat was produced without pasture land. Then colonialism arrived. It did not fit the emerging industrial agriculture model. It did not produce outputs easily measured by hectares of land. It was not tied to land ownership. It did not come with fertilizers, machinery, or tradable inputs. Colonial authorities dismantled traditional systems. They labeled Wolffia cultivation as primitive. Within just 2 generations, the knowledge that had sustained civilizations began to disappear. But that knowledge did not disappear everywhere. In some poor regions, far from centers of industrialization, this tiny plant continued to be preserved. They had no other choice. Wolffia was a cheap, easily accessible protein source from local ponds, helping to feed fish and supplement nutrition during difficult years. In rural Thailand and Laos, families still maintain backyard ponds with a layer of tiny biomass, young enough, dense enough to be harvested daily and eaten like vegetables. In the Mekong Delta, older farmers still remember and apply the old way, allowing Wolffia to grow naturally on rice fields, raising fish below, and using the excess as feed for chickens and ducks. While the rest of the world learned to call it pond scum, dirty residue, or something that must be removed to clean water surfaces, that protein must come from meat, that food must be grown on land. These communities quietly continued to use it as they always had a rapidly renewable food source, independent of markets, independent of seasons. This knowledge continues to exist at the margins of the system, within families too poor to abandon what had proven effective among communities too remote for modernized agriculture to reach. It was not until the late 20th century that modern science truly returned to this tiny plant. Not within traditional agricultural programs, but in a completely different context: the search for efficient food sources for the future. Researchers needed an organism that could grow rapidly in limited space, produce complete nutrition, and operate stably in closed systems. Wolffia does all of this. Studies appeared in scientific reports and other journals with data that astonished scientists by demonstrating stable protein production under altered gravity. Nutritional analyses showed protein content reaching 45% of dry weight, even 48 to 50% in optimized Mancay strains. Growth doubling time of only 29 to 48 hours. No other crop comes close. Follow-up studies calculated yield potential: 1 hectare of water surface can produce 10 to 30 tons of dry biomass per year, equivalent to tens of tons of protein, 5 to 10 times more efficient than soybeans in protein per unit area. Due to continuous growth, no land required, no seasons required, no replanting required. The amino acid profile of Wolffia was then analyzed in detail at Ben-Gurion University, Israel, and affiliated research institutes. The results showed that its protein meets nearly all FAO nutritional standards for humans, containing all 9 essential amino acids in balanced ratios. Rich in leucine, lysine, threonine. The limiting amino acid is methionine, but levels still exceed minimum requirements. This is not animal feed quality. This is human food quality. Subsequent studies went further with human clinical trials. Wolffia under the commercial name Mankai. They fed Mankai to participants in controlled trials. Clinical Nutrition 2019 Nutrients 2020. Digestibility reached 89 to 93%, with bioavailability comparable to egg protein or soft cheese. No adverse side effects were recorded. Neutral taste, easy to incorporate into everyday foods. Notably, Mankai contains naturally bioactive vitamin B12, a rare trait in plants increasing blood B12 levels by up to 15.4% in long-term trials. The conclusion is clear: Wolffia or Mankai is suitable for direct human consumption, even ideal for vegetarian/plant-based diets. In parallel, studies on aquatic environments were conducted. Wolffia showed strong absorption capacity for nitrogen at around 95%, in 70 to 90% of dissolved phosphorus, and in some wastewater treatment systems, it also accumulated heavy metals at significant levels. This plant does not merely tolerate pollution, it eats pollution, turning waste into edible protein. A pilot experiment in Malaysia applied Wolffia eriza to treat aquaculture effluent. Wolffia was introduced into the system and absorbed pollutants, aggressively removing up to 80% BOD, 99% ammoniacal nitrogen, 94% total suspended solids, and 15% COD within just 7 days at optimal loading. The effluent water became cleaner, suitable for irrigation or reuse in fish ponds. The harvested Wolffia biomass was then used as feed in catfish trials. Fish fed with 50 to 100% Wolffia, replacing commercial feeds, showed good growth with no adverse effects. Waste was converted into protein, a perfect closed loop. Real-scale pilot studies comparing Wolffia globosa with other duckweed species published on PubMed in 2015 and in more recent trials showed that Wolffia clearly outperformed others in nutrient recovery from wastewater, removing total nitrogen and total phosphorus at high rates, 0.31 to 0.66 grams per square meter per day, while producing protein-rich biomass ranging from 35 to 50%. This system integrates seamlessly into a circular economy. Harvested biomass is used as animal feed or human food. A floating constructed wetland system combining Wolffia and Azolla, published on Science Direct in 2025, treated municipal wastewater, reducing 85 to 89% of biochemical oxygen demand, 80 to 91% of ammonium nitrogen, 79 to 82% of phosphate, and 70 to 81% of chemical oxygen demand in just 28 days. Protein production costs are extremely low, under 10 US cents per kilogram in optimized systems, thanks to minimal inputs, continuous harvesting, and the use of existing wastewater. Meta-analyses from multiple countries have reached a clear conclusion. Wolffia is the most resource-efficient protein source humanity has ever had. Science has proven it. The data are overwhelmingly clear and convincing. So the question arises, why is Wolffia not on every dining table? Why does it not appear in every grocery store? Why have most people never heard of it? In the United States, Wolffia globosa is often classified as an introduced species in some states such as Florida and California, and is closely monitored due to its potential to spread. Large-scale cultivation or release into natural ponds may require permits, and interstate transport can sometimes result in fines. In some jurisdictions, possession or release of this species into the natural environment is strictly restricted. The official reason is ecosystem protection. Wolffia spreads extremely fast. It can cover entire ponds, block sunlight, and disrupt existing ecosystems. This is true, but the same is true of every successful crop in human history. Wheat spread aggressively. Corn outcompeted native plants. Soybeans required the destruction of millions of hectares of forest to cultivate. Industrial agriculture has converted more than 1 billion acres of wild land into monoculture fields. No one bans those things, but Wolffia is different. Wolffia does not require purchasing seeds every year. No need to buy fertilizers. No need to buy pesticides. No need to buy expensive equipment. You can start a Wolffia farm with just a plastic container and a small handful taken from almost any pond. That is precisely the problem. The global animal feed industry generates hundreds of billions of dollars each year. Soybeans, corn, whey protein, and alternative products all depend on complex supply chains, land seeds, fertilizers, transportation, processing, packaging. Wolffia does not need most of those. It grows so fast that it does not fit the operating rhythm of existing supply chains. In the human food sector, barriers also lie in standards and perception. Protein powders, energy bars, and superfood products rely on premium branding and expensive processing. Wolffia powder Mankai has production costs lower than the packaging that contains it. Environmental regulations provide a convenient cover. Classifying Wolffia as invasive or a nuisance makes commercial cultivation nearly impossible. Permit requirements add costs and administrative barriers. The result is a familiar paradox: a plant with the potential to simultaneously solve nutrition and environmental problems is pushed to the margins, while those who would benefit the most, small farmers, food-insecure communities, developing countries, are told that it is too dangerous to grow. Too dangerous. A plant that humans have safely eaten for generations across Southeast Asia. A species that has undergone human clinical trials shown to be highly digestible with bioavailability comparable to eggs and no recorded adverse effects. A plant recognized by scientific research as the most resource-efficient protein source currently available. Regulations are not protecting ecosystems. They are protecting profits. And you are paying the price through expensive protein, depleted land, and polluted water. You do not need permission to feed yourself. This is what they never tell you. Restrictions on Wolffia mainly apply to large-scale commercial activity in public natural water bodies. They do not apply to closed systems on private land. A plastic container in your backyard, or a water tank on your rooftop, or even a small tank on a balcony. You can legally grow Wolffia in most places. One container, some water, a small starter handful from a nearby pond. That is the entire investment. In just 2 weeks, you will have more than enough to use. In reality, Wolffia has long been legally cultivated in closed controlled systems for research, food, and aquaculture. Wolffia can be dried and ground into protein powder. It can be fed directly to chickens to produce eggs richer in omega-3s. It can be used as fish feed in backyard aquaponic systems. It can be added fresh to smoothies, salads, soups. Just 1 square meter of water surface produces more than 1 kilogram of protein per month. Advanced applications are even more powerful. Wolffia can treat household gray water. It can clean aquarium waste in aquaponic loops. It can turn nitrogen-rich runoff into food instead of pollution. You can build a closed protein system that operates almost for free. This is not theory. Many people are doing it right now. Permaculture projects in the developing world have already integrated Wolffia into sustainable food systems. Knowledge continues to spread despite regulations, despite lack of commercial support, despite deliberate suppression, because once people see the numbers, they cannot unsee them. 45% protein doubling in less than a day and a half. Complete amino acids, no external inputs. This is not a supplement. This is a revolution. The industrial food system taught you that protein must be expensive, food must require inputs, and you must depend on supply chains beyond your control. Wolffia tells a different story, a story of abundance without permission of protein, without corporations and food security that does not have to be out of reach for communities. Every pond already has it. Every warm water surface can grow it. The infrastructure already exists everywhere, just waiting to be activated. The only barrier is knowledge. Now you know it exists. A small handful of Wolffia, a container of water, 2 weeks of patience. That is the distance between you and free protein forever. Follow Forgotten Flora Vault so you do not miss other forgotten plant secrets. Plants that can change how we eat lives sustainably and achieve food independence. Press subscribe and turn on notifications to join a community that refuses artificial scarcity. Comment below if you have tried or plan to grow Wolffia, and share this with friends to spread this knowledge. Together we can change everything. The tiny green dust is waiting, and it will change everything. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.